A new showdown shaping up over Arizona's immigration law. Republican Governor Jan Brewer determined to get key provisions back into the legislation. A federal judge wiping out some of the toughest parts of the law this week, sparking protests across the country. Folks from both sides of this debate pouring into the streets yesterday. Andrew Thomas, a former Maricopa County Attorney General. Alicia Menendez is a senior advisor at advocacy group NDN. Good morning to both of you and welcome to the show. Okay, Andrew, let me start with you, Andrew. Good morning to you. So Governor Brewer didn't waste any time to appeal, and she, in fact, has asked the court to expedite its ruling. What's her strategy?
Well, I think that obviously we need to get a higher court to rule on this because the ruling of the district court here in Phoenix largely gutted the law. I think that the ruling is wrong, and so she's asking the Ninth Circuit to weigh in. I think that's appropriate. Unfortunately, it's probably going to take some time. So in the meantime, we'll continue to be handcuffed in our efforts to combat illegal immigration here.
And I want to get back to that point, but in the meantime, Alicia, let me ask you, what do you think about the judge's decision? And going forward with this, do you think the Obama administration should perhaps become more aggressive with their fight against immigration, or perhaps make it more public, in fact, what they're doing?
I think that the decision was the right one, especially since it, called into question the parts of this law which advocates were most concerned. I don't think the focus needs to be on the Obama administration being any tougher on this than they've already been. Listen, enforcement up along the border, so much so that they have immigration advocates angry at them. I mean, I think there's this strange meme out there that they haven't been tough on this. They have. The focus, if anything, needs to be on Washington Republicans to come to the table, act in the spirit of George W. Bush, of Ronald Reagan, and get immigration reform done at the federal level where it belongs. Listen, 3 times.
Which, Alicia,
in the last 5 years, we've had this discussion.
Yeah, well, Alicia, that's why I asked you if you felt like the administration needed to be more public and clear in what they're doing.
I don't know how much. Yeah, I just don't know how much more public they can be. Barack Obama gave an incredible speech on immigration. He's made it clear that this is a priority. But he's also made it clear that if we're going to do this, it's got to be in a bipartisan fashion. The only bill that actually passes is one that has a Republican co-sponsor, and that's why it's so disheartening. The Republicans who've been a champion of this, John Kyle, John McCain, they need to come back to the table.
Let me let
but what you hear coming out of Washington, though, are appeals for amnesty. That's all we ever hear from this administration, and we hear phony promises of putting troops on the border. There's never the follow-up, and the reality is the Justice Department came into Arizona and shot down this law, which was something that Arizonans felt they had to do because the federal government has been utterly unwilling to address the situation.
Andrew, I've got a few more seconds here, but let me ask you specifically, if you will, as the former AG down there in Maricopa County, what do you think needs to be done now? How do the folks on the ground battling it there in Arizona, in other bordering states, what should they do? And then what would you like to see specifically the federal government do more of if they're not doing enough?
Well, the first thing they should do is stop trying to torpedo our laws that we're having to pass in order to deal with the problem that the federal government created through decades of ignoring the situation along the border. We have an employer sanctions law in Arizona that's going before the U.S. Supreme Court in this next term. That's important. We have a human smuggling law. Sheriff Arpaio enforce that here in Maricopa County. The reality is the federal government is not a part of this solution. They're part of the problem, and they've got to at least let Arizona deal with it.
But Andrew, it is a federal government issue as well, but of course it's right there. It's very close to home. Literally, it's there. I'm sorry, Alicia, but I want to do one more question with Andrew. My final question. I need to know specifics, sir. I understand, laws that you want to be put in place. I want to know action right now. Is it more troops in the ground you need? What is it that you need to help you fight this problem down there?
We need everything. We need more troops on the ground along the border. We need the Justice Department to stop trying to torpedo our laws. And we need the federal government to not be pushing for amnesty, because all that does is encourage more floods of illegal immigrants to come across the border. They should at least be doing no harm. And instead, what they're doing is undermining our efforts here in Arizona to deal with a problem that we bear the brunt of for the entire nation.
Alicia, I know you disagree. I'm sorry, I can't let you talk right now because I'm out of time, and that's
Let's
just the way.
Let's just be clear, the judge was a judge in Arizona.
Gotta go. I'd like to see both of you again
but she was wrong.
as this debate continues. Thank you, Andrew and Alicia.